Hey everyone, it's Gilbert.K show. Joining us today is the incredibly talented Vicki Glover, a shining star in the UK independent movie scene. You might recognize her as Susan Atkins in the chilling Netflix hit, The Manson Family Massacre, or as the compassionate nurse Kate Bickerstaff in the heartwarming Once a Year on Blackpool Sands on Amazon Prime. Currently honing her craft at the prestigious Manchester School of Theatre, she's proving that balancing top-notch training with a thriving acting career is more than possible. When she's not in class, you can catch her captivating audiences in gripping murder mysteries and other standout roles. Let's give a warm welcome to Vicki Glover.
Hey Vicky, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Gilbert. How are you?
Good, not too bad. Before we dive in, let's take a moment and watch a clip from your reel.
Fine. She's me. I messed up. Bad. But no one needs to know about it. I've started over.
That's exactly what I want.
Then tell the truth and let me help you in there.
No.
Could you start telling me a little bit about yourself and what sparked your interest in acting?
Absolutely. So I'm an actor based in West Yorkshire in the UK. I'm currently, I think you heard Gilbert say in the bio, I'm currently training at Manchester School of Theatre as a mature student because I've gone to uni after a number of years in the industry. And yeah, the thing that got me into acting, I got dragged into acting because when we were at school, my best friend wanted to audition for the school play at primary school. We were like 11. I didn't want to audition for the school play. I had other things I wanted to be doing with my life, but she dragged me to the auditions. I got a part, quite a big part. I was playing a squirrel with smelly feet, and I started learning the lines. I started doing the show, and I was like, oh, this is a bit good. I quite like this. And then on the first night, we got a standing ovation, which, to be fair, we were children. It was our parents. What are you going to do? But I just really, really enjoyed it, and I just went from there, really.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So it's the encouragement and the clapping, and is it the so you get is it the attention or what moved
I,
you?
I think that was kind of what started me on it, but now,
Yeah.
it's more, I enjoy being able to have new experiences and play different people and do things I wouldn't ever get to do normally in real life. And I don't mind whether that gets a standing ovation or not. I just like experiencing it.
Okay, so you enjoy it. That's your passion. Okay, and what was one of your most memorable experience when you started out?
Well, actually, not long after that school play and after I decided, yes, I'm going to do this acting thing professionally when I grow up, I got the opportunity to audition for, well, it was a competition on SMTV Live, if you remember that, with Anton Deck, and it was a chance to get a part in Shrek 2. And I remember you had to record a little audition over the phone. It'd be a video these days, but it was over the phone. And we got a phone call a couple of weeks later from someone in the studio going, we'd like her to come on the show and be in the final with 3 other children. I just remember jumping up and down in my slippers and being really excited. And I ended up getting the part. So I'm in Shrek 2, and I recorded that when I was about 14. So that was a pretty big thing when I was starting out.
That's amazing. And how do you describe yourself in 3 words?
I would say hardworking, possibly to a fault. I'm not sure whether just when to switch off. I'd say compassionate, but also no nonsense. Like I'll be kind to you, but I'm not taking any rubbish.
Yeah. And what's one fact about you that most people might not know?
I think one that often surprises people is when between the ages of 14 and 19, I used to do taekwondo. I got quite far through it, and then life got in the way, unfortunately. But I was about 3 belts away from black when I stopped, and I'd love to go back to it, but it's just time, isn't it?
And do you have any hobbies? What do you do for fun other than acting?
When I'm not acting, I play video games. I'm currently playing Tales of Vesperia on the Switch. I like to read a lot. I watch a lot of films, obviously, as I think most actors do. And I like horse riding as well.
Yeah. Any favorite movies you liked
Oh,
recently or
my favourite movie of all time would be The Shawshank Redemption, because I just
huh?
absolutely love it. It's so inspiring and really well written and well acted. What have I seen recently that I really, really liked? Um, oh, you've caught me on the hop here, Gilbert. I can
That's
tell you,
okay.
let me think, what have I seen?
That's
I
okay.
did I did see at a secret screening recently. I saw Presents, the Steven Soderbergh one, which was really
Okay.
interesting because it was totally different to a lot of stuff I've seen. The way it's shot is really, really unique, and it's, I won't give too much away, but the twist is very satisfying.
Yeah. So we're gonna play a game. This is it's called This or That. And what is it? The theme is acting. And in this fun game, I'll give you two options, and you have to pick the one you like the most or the one that fits you better. There are no wrong answers, or and you don't need to explain your choice unless you want to. It's
Okay.
all about quick, fun decisions to show us more about you, so for the audience to learn more about you. Are you ready, Vicky?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Um, Only be cast in dramatic crime scenes, or only be cast in over-the-top comedy roles.
Oh, dramatic crime scenes, definitely.
Have to wear a ridiculous wig in every role, or always have a fake, unconvincing accent.
Oh, that's hard. Fake unconvincing accent, 'cause that would be fun to do.
Be stuck in a love triangle in every movie, or be the side character who disappears halfway through.
Side character who disappears halfway through. They've got some fun stuff.
Only be cast in horror movies as the one who screams the most, or only be in rom-coms but always play the quirky best friend.
Oh, that's hard. Horror movies and screaming a lot.
Wear a corset so tight you can breathe in every historical drama, or wear a green screen suit for a CGI character in every film.
Corset, because I've actually done it.
Be an actress in a soap opera where every episode ends on a dramatic gasp, or only star in low-budget disaster movies.
Oh, low budget disaster movies, because I'm thinking things like Snakes on a Plane, and I just love things like that.
Your mic is always left on so everyone hears your backstage gossip, or your costumes always rip at the worst moment.
Uh, Costumes, because I talk to myself a lot and people think I was absolutely nuts.
Your romantic co-star always had bad breath, or you have to film a kissing scene while both of you have the flu.
Oh, the flu one, because at least if you've both got the flu, you can't give each
Yeah,
other the flu. Yeah, second one.
I know they're weird. Only get cast in scenes where you have to run in high heels, or only play characters who trip and fall at key moments.
Uh, Characters who trip and fall, because I do stage combat, so I'm quite good at falling, but I cannot walk in high heels to save my life. So they would sort of combine if I had to do the high heel one.
Yeah. Act in a scene with an animal that won't follow directions, or act in a scene with a child who keeps forgetting their lines.
Oh, it's going to make me want really bad for the animal. I love animals.
Okay, so let's show our audience another clip from your reel.
What do we get now? Oi! Didn't you hear me, lad? Move. Go scrounge someplace else.
Enough now, my love. Jog on.
You after a beating, son?
We're doing a lap of this park. For your own sake, don't be here when we get back.
Okay, can you tell me about the journey or inspiration behind your work or project that you've done or you're working on?
Yeah, it's quite difficult to say because obviously you go from project to project as an actor. But if I think about my career as a whole and like the work that attracts me and inspires me and makes me want to do it, I don't mind what media it is, like if it's film, if it's TV, if it's theatre or radio, even on musicals, as long as it's a good character with depth, that more than two-dimensional, three-dimensional character. And I briefly touched on this earlier, but I like doing things that I can't do in real life. So I like playing lawyers, doctors, pirates, police officers, whatever. Or I like doing different time periods, so period dramas or even fantasies, stuff that... don't get me wrong, domestic stuff is amazing and it can be really interesting and an interesting challenge and really realistic and naturalistic, but I enjoy stuff that I couldn't just go down the street and do.
Okay. How did your experience shape your approach to acting?
I sort of approach that in two different ways. So I both how I approach the way I develop a part, but also how I approach which jobs I go for, because I think they're two very different things. And I think in terms of how I approach developing a character, it's often things happen that are quite unexpected that I wasn't planning to do, and they unlock something in the process. Like just before I went to Manchester, I was in a UK tour of something called the Murder Trial Live, and I was playing a prosecution barrister. And I sort of accidentally picked up a book in the supermarket about a lawyer. I was like, oh, I'll read that, that'll be fun. And it made me realise how inspiring and how much I get from... Because I always do a lot of research for a role, but I've realised how much I get from reading fiction as well. It gives me a different perspective on it, and so that's sort of become part of my process now. So the way I approach roles and challenges like that is always changing and is usually influenced by something I wasn't even expecting. And in terms of the jobs I take, I think, don't get me wrong, I've had hundreds and hundreds of good experiences, but I've also had some bad experiences. And I think they kind of tend to shape your approach more than the good ones, because you realise what's important to you. Because acting is, I love it, it's the best thing, but it's hard. It's not an easy career. You're not going to get, unless you're a Hollywood star, you're probably not going to earn very much money. You're not going to get maternity pay, sick pay. You should get holiday pay, but that's another problem entirely, but you're probably not going to get that either. It's not easy. You're going to struggle to buy a house, all these things. So I don't see any point in doing it if you're not enjoying it. So one of the things I've really learned is if I'm doing a job and I'm not enjoying it, I've learned how to isolate what is causing that feeling and therefore what I should avoid in future, if that makes sense.
So how do you get interested in a project? Is it the producer, director, the script, or all the above? What makes you interested?
It can be the producer or the director or even other actors if there's someone who's doing it that I'm like, oh, I really want to work with them. But the script is always paramount. If the script is well written and it's a story that I enjoy, if I'm drawn into it, then that's kind of the main thing that really attracts me to a project. I remember doing a film with someone who's a very good friend of mine now. He's called Richard Fish. He's actually based just over the border from Canada, so you should look him up. But he sent me a script. I've told him this story, so it's fine. And I was sitting under a tree in Leeds reading it on my iPad, and I wasn't sure if I was enjoying it or not. And then my iPad died, and I went, no! And I was like, oh, I have to do this, because I'm now desperate to know what comes next. So it's the script is the first big thing. If the script is good, everything else follows.
Okay. Just a question for the audience. How do you know you're talented as an actor? How do you know you are talented, and like how would you know that? to pursue it, because there's some kids, or I don't know, people, they say, oh, I don't know, their friends, maybe they're not supportive or something, and they say, oh, you're not that talented. So how do you know that you're talented and you have that gift? Is there
Well,
something, like in your case, how do you feel that? How did you see that?
I mean, what kind of set me on the path was quite simple. People casting me in things, going, yes, you're good. Yes, you've got lead. I did a lot of Amdram when I was younger, amateur dramatics. I don't know if it's the same in Canada, and just people do tell you you're good, and people say, oh, you should do this. But to be honest, I'm going to be kind of, but I don't. When I say I don't think it matters, obviously you've got to be good at it. But I think if you want to do it and you think you're not good at it, go to acting classes. It's a skill like any other. It doesn't. I think people always think, oh, you've got to be naturally as good as Jennifer Lawrence or something, and it's like you don't. You can train the skill like any other. I've seen and when you go from a small pond to a bigger pond and then a bigger pond, and you think you're good, and then you meet a lot of people who are just as good as you are, and a lot of them are better, and you're like, oh, I have to up my game. And then you that never stops. You keep meeting people who are better than you, and you go, oh, I need to get better at this now. So I think, annoyingly, the answer is you don't know, really. You just have to do the best work you can, hope people like it, and if you really truly think you're not any good at it, you can train it. Don't think if you think... You probably do have natural talent, even if you think you don't. But even if you don't, that doesn't mean you can't get good. You just have to practice and train and work with people who are better than you to make yourself better.
Yeah, great advice, actually. Great advice. So how do you prepare for a project or a role when you get the script?
Honestly, it varies from project to project. Like, I think some actors have a step-by-step process that they do with every script they get, and then I'm more of I have my little toolbox, and I like to pick out what works and what doesn't for each individual. One thing you always do, I think, for every role, without shadow of a doubt, you read the script, and then you read the script, and then you read the script, and you keep doing that. I'm admittedly not great at having the discipline to keep reading the script, so what I like to do is I bring in exercises from training that make me read the script over and over again and make me look at it in more depth. So, for instance, there's one you do where you look through the script and you find everything you say about yourself, everything you say about other people, and everything other people say about you. And I've always found that one such a useful exercise because it instantly gives you quite a lot of insight into the character as the writer wrote them. And then obviously you can fill in any blanks yourself. But I like to write down questions I have as I go as well. So, like, for instance, if on the first page it said, where's Roberta? I might down, who is Roberta? And then it might answer it on the next page, or it might never answer it at all, in which case I will say to the director, who is Roberta? And if the director says, I don't know, who do you think Roberta is? Then you make it up from there. But I like to ask the questions. And then it does totally vary depending on what the role is. So, for instance, I do always do a lot of research, though. Like, when I played Susan Atkins in the Manson Family Massacre, I read a lot of stuff about the Manson family, including 2 books that Susan Atkins had written herself, which was really interesting because that was coming at it from a sort of psychological perspective because she was a real person. So you've kind of got to honour that and make sure you get the voice right and the physicality and the psychology and why she did what she did. But then when I did, for instance, Once a Year on Blackpool Sands, where I played Nurse Kate Bickerstaff, that was set in the 80s and it was all about attitudes to homosexuality and that kind of thing. And I got hold of a book called Gay in the 80s, which was like about that historic. So I came at that more from because the character wasn't a real person, but she was a real sort of person you'd have come across at that time, if you know what I mean. So I came at that from historical perspective, looked at like what kind of things people would have been facing back then, and I rewatched Pride because Pride is one of my favourite films, and if I ever do anything set in the 80s, you got to rewatch Pride. But yeah, anything like that, I like to do a lot of reading around it, and of course, as soon as you get the chance, you learn the lines. You're not always I would always say I'm still figuring out what works best for me, but I think I would at the moment say learn the lines as far in advance as you can. But of course, I'm sure you'll know, in indie film, in any film, but in indie film especially, like sometimes you don't get the script until like a week before. Sometimes you get the script and then it changes. I did have one occasion where we got a new draft of the script, learnt the new draft of the script, and then got there and they went, "No, we're going back to the old draft now. Here you go, learn the sides and we'll do the scene in a minute." It's like,
Oh, wow.
but you learn to, like, I think it's better to be on top of the lines if you can, because then you're not thinking about the lines. But there is something to be said for not over-rehearsing them as well, because then they come out naturalistically and not too placed, I suppose. But yeah, it's different for every role.
Yeah. Are you type of actor who likes to... some directors, they don't like to rehearse, right? They do just table read, and then you just start filming on set, you know? Are you... what's your preference? Do you prefer that there will be some rehearsals before, or you're okay with just like Woody Allen, for example? He just doesn't rehearse at all with his actors.
I think for film particularly, I like like almost as little rehearsal as possible. And obviously it depends what you're doing. Like if there's a fight in it, for instance, you got to rehearse that. If there's any intimacy, you've got to rehearse that. If there's specific marks you've got to hit, it's handy to rehearse that. But it's more the technical bones of it I like to rehearse. In terms of the lines, often I find if you rehearse it, you get the best take not on tape.
That's true. Yeah.
And I tend to find that, especially with close-ups for some reason, my first takes are often the best ones. So depending on if it's comedy, I tend to sort of settle into it actually. But so I prefer, because with film you can always go again. So if you get it wrong, it's not a big deal. But you might have got a moment in that rehearsal that you can use, and you shouldn't waste it. So for film, I just prefer to, as soon as you've got all the blocking and the technical stuff out of the way, just go for it and see what happens.
Yeah. What was one unexpected challenge you faced when getting started?
To be honest, the challenge I faced most was I just couldn't get into drama school. When I was like 18, 19, 20, I was auditioning and I wasn't getting anywhere. And it was that thing of like, you're a teenager, people have told you you're good, and you're like, oh, this is fine, I'll walk straight out of here into RADA and then I'll get a great agent and that'll be that. And it doesn't often work like that. For some people it does, but for me it didn't. So that was something I had to navigate when I was pretty young. So you get raised, don't you? You're like, you go to school, then you go to university, then you have a job. And the university drama school phase was eluding me. So I kind of just got into it off my own back. But now I'm older, I have gone to drama school, which is fun and I'm really, really enjoying it. But yeah, I was expecting it to follow quite a linear path and it did not at all.
Okay. And how do you see acting evolving in the next few years, especially with this AI and all that stuff? Are you scared of AI? Or
I would say I'm wary of the AI, to be honest. It's something... It's obviously going to make changes to the industry. And I'm already seeing it being used. But I think at least at this stage, it's not good enough to replace real people. Like, I've seen scripts written by AI and they're appalling.
Yeah.
So, and even if it does, I think, get to the level where it could conceivably replace real creatives, I don't think it will, because I think there'll always be that hunger for... There might be fully AI-generated movies in the future, and that's cool, but I don't think that will replace real people, real writers, because, it's like when the Kindle came out, people still read books, so there's always going to be that hunger for the real thing, even if they coexist. So I'm not scared of it from the point of view of like not having a job in 10 years. I think there'll always be actors. I think that the thing we've got to be very wary about with AI, and the thing that the actors were striking over recently is the fact that there's a lot of unscrupulous people out there now who will get you to sign something with lots of legalese that means they own your voice forever, and then they can basically make an entire movie out of your image and not pay you, which is not kosher and shouldn't be happening. So I think it will all get ironed out in a few years, and quite honestly, I'm quite glad that I'm in drama school right now and not having to worry too much about that. But I think at the moment, we've got to be very careful about what we're signing and just be very sure, absolutely sure. I mean, I would say that anyway. Like, the amount of actors who don't read contracts and then regret it stresses me out so much. But especially with AI, where AI is concerned, you've got to know what you're agreeing to and make sure you're happy with it before you do.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next segment. What's one crucial piece of advice you would give to someone interested in acting?
Genuinely, it would be keep going. Like, it can be really, really hard, and quite a lot of the time it kind of relates back to what you were saying earlier about how do you know if you're talented, because you don't, because it's all subjective. And my advice would be just keep going. Like, some people, you might get into drama school when you're 18, you might not get in until you're 40, and that's fine. You might be getting the roles you want, you might not be, but it'll happen. You might, because there's always some new hurdle. Like, at first, it's in this country anyway, it's getting onto Spotlight, and you get onto Spotlight and you're like, great, now I want this, and it can be really hard to keep that motivation. And I would just say, just cling on with your fingernails and keep going, because if you do, a lot of people won't. Like, a lot of people will drop out when it gets hard, and if you're one of the ones that doesn't, you will eventually be successful.
Yeah, good advice. So if somebody think they are talented and they have the gift, how do they move forward with it? What do they need to do? Do they need to take training? Who do they need to find an agent? What do you recommend?
It's tricky because, again, it's not a linear path, but I would say the first thing you should do is get some good training under your belts. I'm not sure what there is available in Canada or in the US and that kind of thing, but for anyone who's here in the UK, I would just, the best way I'd say to find a class that works for you is ask your fellow actor friends who you think are good, and they will inevitably able to give you, they'll be like, oh, I did this class, it was amazing, you should do it. That's how I found the class I go to weekly, and it's brilliant. So yeah, find some training with people you trust to know what they're doing. That's probably the first step. And then the world's your oyster, really. You can try and get an agent. I'd say that's probably, if you haven't got an agent, that should be constantly ticking alongside what you're doing. Every so often fire off a bunch of emails. But then you can be developing other skills as well. Like, one of the things that makes you marketable is being able to sing, play instruments, ride horses, stage combat, any sports you're good at. I'm rubbish at sports, so there's not many of those on my CV, but if you are, anything you can use to market yourself, especially if it's something unusual, like if you're a contortionist or something. Agents love that. And then once you've got an agent, it's about writing to casting directors and getting, you can do that alongside as well. A lot of it you can do simultaneously. I think I came across a really good quote recently, which was something, what was it exactly? When the seas are stormy, a good fisherman mends their nets. So I think the important thing is not to think you can only do work on it when you've got a role. There's always something you can be doing, be it learning an accent, learning a new skill, writing to agents, writing to casting directors, getting more acting training. I think the most important thing when you're first starting out is to kind of just immerse yourself in it as fully as you can, as much as you can afford and as much time as you've got. Now, I'm going to say something that some people might think is controversial, but I'd say when you're starting out, do unpaid work, do low budgets. Like, a lot of people, there's a lot of actors out there who'll be like, you should never do unpaid work. I don't agree with that. I just think you shouldn't do something where you're being exploited. If everyone's getting paid but you, maybe that's not right. But if it's a case of we're all doing this collaboratively to get showreel footage, that's great. Do that. Get your showreel together. Just gradually build your portfolio, gradually create your contacts, and always be doing something to improve.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Can you share a moment when you faced a significant obstacle and how you overcame it?
Yeah. This is always a tricky question to answer because it's, I don't know, I'm a little bit nervous about sharing this because it's something I'm not sure how like people in the industry would react, but I'm gonna because I think it's important. When COVID hit and I was like everybody was struggling, but in addition to COVID hitting, after I got COVID, I ended up with cysts on my vocal cords, which was really, well, I'm not allowed to swear on this podcast, so I'll just say that it was really horrible. I lost about a third to a half of my vocal range because I sing as well. My voice was really raspy and croaky, and it was really scary actually because like your voice is, I'd say probably one of, you can do non-dialogue roles, but they're few and far between. It's one of the few things you kind of really need as an actor. There's a lot of things you can do without, but I'm not sure your voice is one of them. And it was challenging to get it back up to the level it needed to be. And they're still doing a laryngoscopy every 6 months just to make sure everything's okay, which so far it is, so that's good. But the way I kind of overcame it, and I would say, and this applies specifically to this, but also to basically any challenge. Engage the experts, keep practicing, and don't give up. So like, and when I say engage the experts, like I was lucky enough that I had some money to be able to hire singing teachers and voice teachers and stuff to help me through it. But, and now I'm at drama school, which is even better because my voice is getting even better than it was before I was there. But if you can't afford to do that, that's fine. There are so many brilliant books out there, voice books. Like we're studying, so there's so many really good voice books. Again, I don't want to recommend anything specific, but just ask. Any voice teacher will give you 5 minutes to go, yes, look at this voice book. They might be like, if you want an hour's class with me, it's going to cost X, Y, Z. But there are some great books out there that will take you step by step through the things you need to do to improve your voice. If you can't afford to engage the experts literally with them in the room, then you can engage them through reading and learning. And the important thing is to know, if you keep practicing and you keep going, it's a long old road, but you'll get there in the end. It's the same as keeping going with acting. If you carry on doing something long enough, you'll get better at it.
Yeah, great advice. Before we move on to the last or the final segment, let's watch a clip from your reel.
I was just thinking.
What is it?
Well, that man, Dr. Jekyll, he wasn't carrying a cane when he came here, but he did have a briefcase.
Yes, I know he had a case. I saw that for myself.
Well, what I mean is, it's like this. If you hold this and pretend it's Dr. Jekyll's case, and then if you pretend this is a walking cane, then try and grab me and hit me over the head with the cane.
Okay, here's the final segment. Is there one last thought or piece of advice you'd like to share with our listeners or audience? You already talked a lot about that. You gave great advice, but is there anything last one?
Can I say two things?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to sound really trite, but it is genuinely true.
Yeah.
Look after yourself. Like, you're not going to do your best work if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, if you're not hydrated, if you're not finding time to rest. I think I said earlier, I work hard to a fault. I don't work as hard as I do. Take some rest every now and again. Because I find if I take 4 days off, I'm like suddenly firing on all cylinders again. It's such an important thing. Mm-hmm. And meditate. That's great as well. That'll get you in a good mindset, and it will mean you're more present when you're acting, which is always useful. And then the other thing I would say is have something outside acting that you love. Don't get me wrong, I love acting, it's my absolute priority, but no matter how much you love it, sometimes you'll just be like, I despair of this, I just need a break. And then you need something that's totally unrelated to acting. Or not necessarily totally unrelated, but something that gets you completely out of your head. Like I said, I like to play video games, because that is, apart from when you think about voice acting, totally related to acting. I can just lose myself in it for a couple of hours and not think. Horse riding, playing instruments. Have something that gets you away from it for a while, because I think that's just as important as it's that work hard, play hard, give everything to your career, but also make sure you look after yourself as well.
Yeah, yeah. You need to recharge for sure. Are there any? So, how can our audience connect with you or learn more about your work?
If you want to find me on social media, I'm on Instagram at Vicki Glover Actress. That's VICKI GLOVER Actress. I am on X, Twitter. I don't use it as much as I used to, but that's Vicki Glover 26. And hopefully at some point over the summer, I will be reviving my website, which will be VickiGlover.com. It just needs some TLC at the moment.
Excellent. Are there any upcoming projects or collaborations you're excited about?
I've got a film coming out at some point, but I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it, so perhaps I shouldn't say anything about that. The thing is, I'm in training at the moment, so I'm not taking as much work outside as I would. I'm doing a lot of murder mysteries, which are great.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the moment you can see me on Manson Family Massacres on Netflix. What was the other one that I mentioned? Once a Year on Blackpool Sands is on Amazon Prime. Then my last film on Amazon Prime was something called Ship of the Damned. So they're all out there. I've not got anything upcoming at the moment just because I'm giving everything to my training at the moment. But in a couple of years, you will be able to see me in my third year productions if you are in the UK.
Excellent. And who would like to thank or acknowledge for supporting you in your journey?
Oh gosh, so many people. I would like to, obviously my parents, like if they're incredibly supportive, and if they hadn't been, they've always been very much, maybe you should be a lawyer, but if you don't want to be, that's fine, we'll look after you and support you no matter what you want to do. So them, all the friends who've put up with me dropping out of plans at the last minute because I've got an audition or a filming date's been rescheduled or something, they are wonderful people. And then just a couple of teachers that, sadly, two of my biggest inspirations have now passed away. There was my gran, who was an amateur director. Thank you, but she was a big inspiration. Took me to like my first theatre productions when I was a kid. I wouldn't be an actor, I don't think, if it wasn't for her. And then there was a gentleman he was one of the directors at my Amdram Society called David Wood. Again, sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but he was probably the first person outside school and anything who really took an interest in me as an actor and spent time helping me out with drama school auditions and stuff. So, and I just also want to thank Ali Nat Keel from Mixing Networks, who they've been the class that I've been going to, and he's absolutely brilliant teacher, and all the other teachers there as well.
Yeah, that's great. Finally, what's next for you? You already mentioned it a little bit about the project you're working on. Anything on the traveling, personal side? Anything fun you're going to be doing?
Do you know what? Actually, I have just got a design done for a new bathroom because my bathroom is falling apart. It leaks through the floor when I have a bath. The toilet lid has to come off to flush it, and the sink is getting blocked. So I'm very excited to get a lovely new shiny bathroom with new shiny, whatever you call them, units that actually work.
That's great. Okay, it's said we're gonna wrap up. That's all, folks. Vicki Glover, everyone.